Great, thanks everyone for coming. So tonight, as I'm sure you guys can see on the screen, we're going to, well, Greg Cockburn from AC3 is going to be trying to build a serverless application in 1 hour using Amplify. So we're going to pretty much just jump straight into it. We do have these two prizes to give out to the end. So we've been doing a competition for whoever sends in a polar bear. So we've had a few submissions, so at the end we'll be announcing who's won that one. So Greg from AC3, thank you.
Thanks, Jackson. Is anyone a polar bear? I need a picture with a polar bear. Come on, I need to win the you.
Probably too late now.
Oh.
It's too late now.
I think it's closed already.
Sorry?
It's closed already.
It's closed already.
Oh no, you're late, Greg.
Yeah, so as Jackson said, I'm going to try and build an application in about an hour. So, quick show of hands, who went to the AWS Summit, a couple of months back now? Yep. Keep your hand up if you visited the AC3 booth, because it was awesome, right? Yeah. And keep your hand up if you played one of the games we had. You can't just be AC3 employees, and you don't count. So you're not an AC3 employee anymore. In fact, were you ever an AC3 employee?
Never signed one.
So for those who don't know, probably almost most of the people in the room actually came from Bulletproof, and AC3 acquired Bulletproof a little over a year ago now, and we rebranded earlier this year just before the AWS Summit. So a little bit about me, I guess. I'm the principal practice lead at AC3. That kind of means that I'm responsible for a lot of the technical direction of the company, specifically around cloud and what we're doing in that space. You can find me on Twitter and GitHub and probably all those other fun social media things at Greg and Z. Yes, that is spelled correctly. It's Greg spelled backwards and Z, and if you didn't pick it up, yes, I'm a Kiwi. So what is AWS Amplify? This is taken straight off the AWS Amplify docs. It's an opinionated, category-based client framework for building scalable mobile and web apps. What does that mean? It's a really simple framework to get you up and running really quickly building applications, and hence why I'm going to try and build one in an hour. So you can build applications for Apple, Android, React, or React Native. Tonight I'm going to try and build one using React, and we're going to try and build a really simple quiz. So, what is this not? It is not a JavaScript tutorial, because I have no idea what I'm doing when it comes to writing JavaScript. It is also not a CSS tutorial, because again, I have no idea. I use Bootstrap. What is this really? How well can I copy and paste from Stack Overflow? Also known as SOD, Stack Overflow Driven Development, if you haven't heard of that before. All right, so that's pretty much the end of the slides. I'm going to get into writing code now, so it's going to be really boring while everyone sits here quietly, and I'm going to write code. That's all right? For an hour, yep? So no talking, yep?
Can I ask you why Amplify? Like, what's the difference say between using CloudFormation and Amplify or things like that?
Yeah, sure. So Amplify gives you the components inside of JavaScript to build an application for a user to use, right? So as an outside user, an external party, you might want to build an application that they can, I don't know, sign up and get spam emails from you, for example. That you can do that either as an application on your mobile or as a web-based application. CloudFormation is more of a definition of components that are in AWS, and Amplify actually uses CloudFormation behind the scenes to build the components that it needs inside of AWS. And I'll show you that later. All right, cool. All right, so what are we going to do first? So a couple of things, a couple of disclaimers. One, I've had my MacBook go in to get the battery recall. I don't know if you guys have heard of that, and so I'm using a loaner, so if this all explodes, I apologize in advance for that. Also, I actually had a different script that I used last time. To this one, this is the one that's published. This is available on our GitHub that you can follow along if you wish to. And so I'm going to try that tonight because I made a few adjustments to it, and if it doesn't work again, I apologize. Oh well, what can I say? All right, so let's get into it. So what we need to do first is we need to create a React app using Yarn. And hopefully the internet's really fast here, which it is. So all of the millions and millions and millions and millions of JavaScript packages that I need to, I don't know, make a font a different color, or to, I don't know, make everything uppercase or something. I'm sure I need a library for that in the JavaScript world, right? All right, so we've got our basic React app there now. And we're ready to go. So into there, and now we need to set up Amplify in it. So I've already installed Amplify. The instructions are at the top of the Amplify app, and that's just installed as an npm package. Why is this taking such a long time? Maybe it's the CPU is a little bit slower on this computer. All right, cool. So for the environment, you can have different environments. And an environment inside of Amplify is so that you can have a dev environment, a production environment, a staging environment, and move between them. In my experience so far, that isn't polished just yet. I managed to end up in a very sorry state when I was building this application. So at the moment, I'm just keeping with one environment for many of the POCs that I do. I'm pretty old school, so I use Vim as my editor. And I'm building a JavaScript app. As I said, we're going to use React. So there's also, for those who are familiar with other frameworks, you can use Angular, Ember, Ionic, React Native, Vue, or if you're really keen, you can do it yourself. Source, build, I'm using Yarn, not npm, so we'll just set those up. All right, and there's your reference to CloudFormation. So you can potentially use other providers, but I haven't seen any yet. Yes, I want to use a profile. There's only one configured, that's my account, and that should now hopefully start to build some things inside of AWS. So if we flip to the console, do a refresh here, we have the beginnings of our application and some of the back-end components in there. All right. So what do we need to do next? So we've set up the components, and we're going to be good developers, and we're going to commit our code. So it takes a couple of seconds, create complete, write some things to disk, and we're done. We're done. This was a lot faster on my other Mac, I swear. So what's this doing? So we've created the stack in CloudFormation, and there's also state that's stored in here. So if we do a quick git diff, that's not initialized. Interesting. All right. So I can't do a git diff. We'll just add what we've got here. really? Okay, I'm not going to be doing Git stuff tonight because I haven't installed GPG. So we'll be skipping everything to do with Git, and hopefully I don't have to roll back to anything. All right. So now that we've got the initial setup of the application, what we're going to do next is we're going to install some libraries around React. So some of these will become clear, but the key ones here are AWS Amplify, that's kind of the core of the Amplify library. AWS Amplify React, because we were building a React application. React Table just helps me build tables inside of React so that you can interact with them. Bootstrap, that should be self-explanatory because I suck at CSS. And React Router DOM is so that you can move different paths. So if you've got a URL with /user or /add or whatever, it's actually moving within the single page application and not going to a different location on the server. So we'll add in those packages and pull them down. It shouldn't take too long. And then we can move on to skip the Git stuff, and we can show the application running. All right, so that's done. And we've got our first React app running, which should hopefully open in a browser. Yeah, things are a little bit slow. Come on, JavaScript, you can do it. And we should, in a second, see the brilliant React logo going round and round circles. Yay! We've built an app. I'm done. So I managed to beat the hour. You can all go home now. Thank you very much. It was for me. Okay, anyway, so that's our framework all set up. We've got the initial React app running, and now what we're going to do is actually start to build the contents of our quiz. Okay, so to do that, what we want to do is we want to be able to host it somewhere. So first off, let's just have a look at what status we've got for Amplify. So we can use Amplify status to show us what's going on in the state of the app. So current environment is master, so as I explained before, you can have different environments, and we defaulted to one that I called master. And at the moment, we've got no resources created. So that table shows us that nothing's been created there. So what we're going to do is we're going to try, first off, by hosting just our really boring React app. I'm going to change it a little bit so you can see what's going on. In S3 and so it publicly running. Now, if you're really good, like someone did it the last time I did this, they managed to grab the URL of the S3 bucket, which is this string about this long, and that is in 8-point font when I do this, onto their phone, and during the presentation actually ran the quiz. I was very impressed that they did that. So that's a challenge out to you guys tonight. All right, so we need to add publishing. So we go Amplify, add publishing, hosting, sorry, add hosting. And we've got a few options here. I haven't created a certificate, and I don't want to wait for 25 minutes or whatever it takes these days to create a CloudFront distribution. So I'm going to go with dev, which just creates an S3 bucket, but it obviously isn't secure. Go with the default, and that's fine. Now, if we have a look at our status now, you should see there that this has been added, and it's in a state of it needs to be created. So what we do to get that up there is we can do an Amplify push, and for those of you who are very good at reading, and you've actually read up there that it says the command is Amplify publish. What Amplify publish does is actually pushes your whole site up there. So we'll do a webpack and build all the JavaScript and push it into S3. What push does is that just pushes the changes of CloudFormation. So if you wanted to add an API, which we will do later, or a GraphQL endpoint, or I just want to create the S3 bucket, that's all that's going to do. So let's do a publish, and that'll do a push as well, so that'll create the S3 bucket, and then it'll do a publish afterwards. It'll only do the push if there's something that needs changing. Yep. So this will now create another nested stack inside of the original CloudFormation stack. So if we go back to CloudFormation, we should see this one updating and a new one being created. So that will create the S3 bucket that we're going to publish our app into. So that'll take a little bit of time. So let's just have a look at what we can do. Okay, so normally here I would do a git add, but I haven't got GPG installed. So let's start editing and adding some content. Just create a new one, so source. Who's familiar with React? Few people? Okay. So again, remember, disclaimer right at the beginning, I am not a JavaScript guy. I am not a React guy, but to kind of give you an idea of what's going on here, we're importing some libraries. So this is kind of the standard thing you would see in any application. So that's published now. So our app is now published in S3, so you can see the long bucket. Hopefully the font's too small for you to actually be able to copy and paste it this time. So we're importing some libraries. We're importing React, the logo, that doesn't even exist, and app.css. They're pretty boring things. What we do is we export a default function called app, and we return some content. And this is using one of the React guys. What is this called? It's not, it's JSX, thank you. So it's not quite HTML. It's this other language that kind of gets transpiled, where I can use all of the JavaScript words into kind of an HTML and JavaScript application behind the scenes. So what we're going to do here is we're just going to change it and show that we can publish our changes. So we want to go here, and we'll just put something fun in there. Sorry. So what are we going to get rid of? Let's get rid of that. 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 We'll keep it inside of the header. Oh, I added a header. So we've saved that. So let's just publish that again.
Says the Auckland Users Group, you haven't changed that one.
Good pickup, well done. So this time it didn't make any changes, and it's saying hello to the Auckland AWS Users Group. So apologies, I forgot that we were in Melbourne today. Oh no, Sydney. I was Melbourne last week. Yeah, that's right. All right, so we can make changes, we can publish them, right? So pretty straightforward. What's next? We can, because we're a good developer, we commit it, but we're not going to do that tonight. All right, so let's add some authentication to our application. So in the AWS world, if you want to add authentication to your application, use something called Cognito. Who's heard of Cognito? Yep, a few people? All right, who's used it? About the same few people? Okay, cool. So Cognito allows you to have authentication built into your application, and the directory can either be federated, so you can federate with Google, Amazon, Facebook, potentially any others that support OpenID, or it can also host it yourself. And you can do like you can do two-factor authentication, email verification with it, and all of those bits and pieces. So we're just going to do something really simple tonight. We're just going to add a real simple username and password sign up. Where we're going to send off the email. I'm going to verify it, and we'll go from there. All right, so we just add that. So we add an auth resource to our application, configuration, username, email. Yep, that looks good. Let's push that so it starts creating things. And now what we need to do is we need to actually add some more libraries so that we actually pull in the Authenticator into our application, and we need to initialize the Amplify with the configuration. So let's just do that. The AWS exports file there is actually one that's written by Amplify. So that's creating some content that's going to reference items in AWS account. Yes, I want to continue. All right. We've already got that open. Yep, here we go. So let's add those here. And what do we want to do next? We need to figure that. We've already done that part. So then we need to change. We need to wrap our export, our app, our function with the Authenticator. So the true here has got to do with how we're going to be displaying it. We just want to do everything, so I've just left it as a pretty straightforward version. And if we run that now locally, we should see our application it should have authentication on there. Or maybe we haven't got to. We've got to wait for some of this to finish here and write it all down. So this is now creating, so you can see there, it's creating the user pool in Incognito. I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself, so we've got that in progress. So once that's created, it'll write those details into the AWS exports file, and then we'll be able to use it then. All right, so that's create complete. So let's see, how is our app going? Let's get rid of that one, let's get rid of that one. There we go. So we've now got a sign-in process. All right, so let's create an account. Superman. Now I have to remember that. The password should be gergens@aws.com, and I don't really need to worry about what the phone number is. Let's see if that works. No usable. Do lots of refreshes. Let's try that again.
You spelled Gmail.
Thanks. Ah, that's not what the delete key is. All right, cool. Yes, why don't you save that? Because I will never remember what it is. So hopefully, if we're really lucky, we've got a verification code. So we can copy our verification code into our app. And we can now sign in, and we get our application with authentication. So we've got authentication running now. I'll just publish that, and then we can show it. Same thing should happen. And of course, because we're on a different domain, the cookie isn't going to be correct, so we're just going to have to sign in again, and we should be able to sign in with the user that we just created.
Why is it using CloudFront? Because I thought you said you weren't going to use.
It's not using CloudFront.
It's using CloudFront. Yeah. It says S3 with CloudFront.
That's the name of the stack that it gives it.
Oh, okay.
So remember, it's opinionated. So regardless of whether you're using CloudFront or not, it's still got to create the S3 bucket. So it is what it is. I don't really mind. Alright, so we'll publish those changes and then we'll have a quick look at that. Alright, so what we're going to do next is we're going to create the navigation bar for our application. So we'll edit nav.js. So this bit's going to become a little bit long-winded while I type a lot of stuff. Alright, so there you go. So we've got the new one published. And let's see if I can get it right. Yes, I got it right. There you go. So we've now published our application with authentication. Okay, so here we need to edit index.js. Sorry, not index.js. We need to create a new file called nav.js. Alright, so again, ahead of myself. Let's just include these two items in index.js and get that out of the way. And then we need to add some things to nav.js. It's a new file. So all that this is doing is creating a nav bar for us with three paths. So one path is slash, which is just home, the default. Another path is leaderboard, and another path is contestants. So the difference between leaderboard and contestants was what we actually had as we were recording some, I guess, PII type data, so we didn't want to make it obvious that there was a way to get that information from contestants. So the leaderboard was there so we could see who was there without actually printing your email address, for example. So we could have a leaderboard that was public and contestants for us when we wanted to get to it. Alright, so we're creating that. Oh, did I export that? Probably, yes I did. Cool. Alright. Now we're going to add these to our app.js. We just need to import all those things. That one's actually being edited here. So we're just going to import the nav. We want to use our router from React Router DOM, and we're going to pull in all of the content for all of the different sections of the application. So we've got question time, which is going to load in much of the default of the application, and the leaderboard and the contestants. And those reference to our nav components. Alright, so what we're going to do here is we're going to add into the default return for the app. We want it to return our router. And the router wrapper is now going to be able to render based on what's in the URL path component, right? So save that. Alright, so now what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to create our three files that build the leaderboard, the contestants, and the questions application itself. So let's edit the first one. So to start with, all we're going to do is I'm just going to put in some very simple content that just creates an empty page on each one with a different name on it. So this one, I'm editing question time, so let's just change that. Dance to... Yep, okay, cool. And then we can just go question time, source, contestants. I can't spell, so let me know if I got anything wrong. And leaderboard. We do it with a capital. Yes, we did. Alright, so I think that's all the bits and pieces that we now have to have our nav working. So let's have a look at our local version. Alright, cool. We have a navigation bar. So we have our default, which is home, with slash. So if we go to slash leaderboard, we can show leaderboard content. And if we go to our contestants link, we can go to the contestants content. So you can see at the top there, hopefully, that the URL was changing. Alright, so let's publish that up to the cloud. And as good developers, you would also do a git commit and all of that fun stuff. And of course, you'd be working in a branch, and these would be features, and you'd go through and you'd update your story and everything else, but I'm not doing that job. Alright, so let's leave that to publish. This laptop seems to run a little bit slower than my other one. Alright, so what are we going to do next? So next what we want to do is we want to add an API. Now there's a few options in the API world in Amplify. And what we're going to do is we're going to use GraphQL. So the GraphQL API inside of Amplify uses AppSync, so AWS AppSync, which behind the scenes is using DynamoDB. Now, I'm no GraphQL expert either. If you want to, you can Google it and go and read about it. It's a pretty straightforward kind of representation of a database schema, if you will, but it makes it easy to query it over a REST API. So our app is now published in S3 while I was talking about GraphQL. So same sort of thing, because we're logged in, we've got the same content. So that's all working, that's great. So let's add the API and wait for the CPU to do its thing. A little bit painful. I really should have asked for a faster map. So who here has played with Amplify before? Wow. Like 2 of you, or maybe 1.5? So after tonight, everyone's going to go home and jump on my GitHub or AC3's or actually Bulletproof's GitHub. Download this and just go for it, and you can build an awesome app. And the other one we've got is we've got Sumerian too.
What is your GitHub?
What is my GitHub?
Yeah.
My GitHub is Google Z, but you're not going to find that on there. Ours is Bulletproof Networks. And yeah, I think we've only got a dozen or so public ones, so just look for Amplify. The other fun one that I did a talk on last week was Sumerian. So if you want a challenge, we only give you a bit to do, and you'll be, you can build the Sumerian app that we built for the summit as well. Okay, so for the API, I'm just going to use GraphQL. I'm not going to pick REST. I believe now that you can also use the MySQL REST, so from MySQL Serverless, but I haven't tried that myself. So what am I picking here? My notes. I think it's just the default that I'm using. GraphQL. Changed it to question time. All right, let's do that. API key. No, we want to pick user pool. Do I have an annotated schema? No. Do you want a schema creation? Yes. And we went with what's specified? Single object. Cool. Let's do that one. Do we want to edit the schema now? Yes. All right. And please. Okay, cool. So this is the default one that we've got. So there's a table, and it's called to do, and it's got IDs of name and description. So we'll quickly finish this because now I'm standing here between you and food, Question?
Yeah, just I think it's great. When I use React.js, if I'm lazy, I just upload the public file into S3. Or if I'm going to be a bit more sophisticated, I use code pipeline to push out to S3.
Sure.
So I see this as being the advantages that you've got these little modules that kind of do stuff for you. Is that the main advantage here? So obviously adding an API, there's a lot of work that goes into that.
Correct.
Cognitos and a lot of work. Is that the main?
That's the big advantage of Amplify. Yeah, it's got lots of little modules that you can do. So in your example there, where you were saying you were being sophisticated and adding a code pipeline, there is actually an Amplify console where you can hook it into your GitHub, and on pushes it will automatically publish it as well. So you can kind of do it's all there.
Push to GitHub and then code pipeline will pick it up from the GitHub. Yeah.
Amplify console. So you could get code pipeline to do it, but Amplify console actually already has that part built in and is all ready to go. You can come with environments and all the rest of it too. So, yeah. So I'm going to create this and then kick off the push, and then we can go and get some food while that builds. So let's just save that and come back here. And Amplify push, which will create our AppSync backend and all of those components. So let's leave it there. Let's take a 15-minute break.
Yep, 20 minute.
15-minute break.
20 to 30 minutes. 20 minutes.
20-minute break. All right. So in the break, we had a couple of questions. One of them was about he didn't have Amplify installed. So if you just go to the Amplify AWS docs on the front page, and I just push my mouse on that one. And I can't type it fast. The command is npm install-g at AWS Amplify/CLI, and so long as you've got node and npm installed. The other question was around how much does this cost? This should fit within the free tier. There's probably going to be a few cents or so for the S3 storage, and I think I have no idea what the free tier is anymore, but I'm sure it'll be fit within the free tier. And depending on how many billions of people that you have on your application running the quiz, then there'll be some cost associated with DynamoDB. But if you're doing it, it's going to be zero. So if you're lucky, you might get a bill for a cent. I don't know. There is a disclaimer at the top of the README. The risk is on you. All right, so we should now have some of our components in DynamoDB and AppSync. So let's just take a look at those. So you should be able to see here, we've got our questions table and our competitors table. So I'll just show you that both of those are empty. So we've got no questions loaded and we've got no competitors. And here's the GraphQL component. So in AWS AppSync is the glue to hook AppSync for the GraphQL component to the backend, which is DynamoDB. And you can see here in the schema all of the kind of iterations to being able to add components, to add items, I should say, to your table. And you can run queries in here. I'm not sure what the settings do. And there's the data sources, so that's the reference to DynamoDB. And then I think in the front page here, you can also, it talks about this documentation about how to actually use the app sync. All right. So let's move on. So now we need to, if I remember correctly, populate our table with some with some questions. So I just need to grab the name of this file, and let's just go pull it through. Maybe there's some food. Go questions.json, and we just need to change this. And hopefully we have some questions. All right, cool. Let's go in here. And we have a bunch of questions. And if you're paying attention, you can see the answers. Okay, so now that we've got our databases, so we can store some information. We've got our questions that we can ask people, and we've put those into the table, right? So let's actually, now what we need to do is we need to build in our application something to actually display those questions and move through them. So this bit here, I'm going to cheat a little bit. So I think I actually got through quite a bit of the content before the pizza break, but last time I did this, there was lots of questions. So we'll get through that, and I'll talk through what we're doing here as well. Okay, so we just need to copy from here, proof, and question time with AS into source. Let's have a look at this file and what it's doing. Okay, so importing some stuff, setting up, Amplify, and then what we're doing here is we want to actually get all of the questions. So we're going to use a GraphQL query, and we want to pull in a limit of 20 from the items, ID, question, answers. So it's a bunch of answers because it's a multi-choice quiz, and the specific answer, and we're going to pull all those into a constant called list questions. We've also got a constant here in JavaScript called add competitor. So this is a mutation, and a mutation in GraphQL is kind of like an insert. So we want to create a competitor. We've got email, name, phone number, the start time and end time, answers, and the result. So the start time and end time is so that I can calculate how fast they did it. The answers is basically a JSON string, so we can actually compute the answers and have a look at them anytime we want to see maybe I put something wrong in the questions, and if everybody is always answering question 7 with D, for example, or something like that, then we can have a look at those details. And then we've got here a bunch of answers. So we've got a class here that is going to render a component about the answers. So the answers were actually color coded. So there's 3 of them, A, B, C, and a multi-choice. And what we actually did on the booth, and I didn't bring it, was we had some arcade buttons. So I built up a little stand and we put some arcade buttons in. I ripped a USB keyboard to pieces and matched some of those keys to A, B, C, D on a keyboard, and then we could use the arcade buttons to answer the quiz during the summit. So I matched the colors danger, success, and warning. So you know, red, orange, green, or red, orange, and blue, or something like that, to the colors of the arcade buttons that we had. So we're just building here like a list of items, right? So, and then they're just going to be, it's a radio type list, and then they're color coded. So you see those bars once we populate that. That's kind of pretty much what that class is doing. Then we've got our specific class down here. So this is the one that's actually going to be rendered by our nav to populate all of the questions and ask the person their details and move through, etc. So on mount, so for those who are familiar with the kind of the concepts inside of React, there's a few things that you can do at different times. So when the page mounts, so it's loaded, what it's going to do is it's actually going to go off and query our GraphQL endpoint for all of the questions so that it can be populated into its internal state. Now we've got an internal state here called this.state, so the constructor in this class is going to have the data, which is all of the questions, which question we're up to, the current question, the current answers, the email of the user, the phone number, name, start time, and end time, the correct count, and if finished is true or false. And so all of these things are the external state of our application. So here we've got an asynchronous call to the competitor mutation. And what this is going to do is it's going to populate that the competitor table via AppSync using the GraphQL. So you can see the API.GraphQL. And it's grabbing all of the information. So we've got the details, and we're building out that JSON object there with all of the state, right? So you see email this.state.email. So that's pulling that in, building up that details, and then that mutation is going to do that insert into that table via the GraphQL. And then we've got a simple list query to get all the questions, so that hooks up the API to GraphQL to pull those questions down, as I talked about earlier, and populate that into the state. So you can see this.setState. We want to populate this data item inside of inside of the state to be all of the questions that we're pulling from GraphQL, and that we want to set the current question to be 0. So then we've got next question. So this just is going to iterate through. So when you hit submit on this question that you've populated, it's going to go and grab the next question and then build out the result for that. Then we've got a really simple one that's going to mark the exam. So what this does is this just iterates through all of the questions, all of the answers, I should say, from the questions, and compares them to your answer in the current state to make sure you're getting them correct. And then just result plus plus, right? So we're just going to increase the result. Then we've got the final submit, which populates the competitor table with all of the information. So the email address, the results, the score, the start time, the end time, etc., etc. And I think handle email was the first one that we actually do the population of the user. And then we've got I kind of am cheating here with a reload so that we can redraw the content easily. And then we do our render. So there's a couple of things that are going on here. So if we've got if the state is currently finished, what we do is we show you how long you took and what your result was, and then and a try again button. Then if the state for the email is currently set to null, we want you to sign up. So again, for those who are paying attention, it says Auckland again. Obviously, I think during the summit it said welcome to the AC3 summit booth. I apologise, I didn't change it before we came here tonight. And it asks you to put in your details and then kicks off the quiz from there. Otherwise, what we want to do is we want to show the first question or the second question and iterate through each question, answering them. And that's pretty much it. So that's everything that's going on there. So let's have a look. So we've got no items in our competitors. Let's have a look here and see if it works. It does. So there we go. So we've got our banner to kind of say, hi, we want your names. So Superman's address, it's just, I think he pretty much has it at Gmail. His phone number, I have no idea. Let's just go with that for now. And then we can begin the questions. So there's the colours that I was talking about, the name mapped to the colours that we had on the buttons. Now, I can cheat here and score absolutely nothing just to get through all the way to the end. I managed to do it in 11 seconds. Make that a bit bigger so you can read it. But I got 0 right. So sadly, yeah.
On the first page where you fill out your details,
Yep.
It's got Superman on the top over there, so presumably you've got access to a user model. Can you access that from your React page?
You can. So there's a couple of things going on here. The reason why we added authentication to the application was so that we could run it in a public space without other people actually getting to it. We didn't actually use the authentication to record users in the system. But what we could have done is exactly what you have said there. Instead of having that first page, I could have actually asked for all of those details in the sign-up page and then use Cognito to do that process. So maybe the first page would have been, hi Greg, or hi Stephen, or whoever signed up. Click here to begin the questions because I've already got your details in the sign-up process. So you definitely could have done it like that. All right, cool. So that's our app working locally with questions. So we got to the end there. Now if we're really lucky, we should hopefully now have an item sitting in our competitors. So you can see there my phone number, the name is Superman, end time, start time, updated ad, the answers, so they were all null. Oops, sorry. And a unique ID. All right, so the last thing that we need to do here is we want to be able to display the contestants. So I'm not going to show you the leaderboard because the leaderboard is ultimately just a cut down version of the contestants page. So we'll just do that. Again, I'm going to just quickly cheat a little bit. Source, and I'll just talk through you what's going on here. So same sort of thing here. We're importing the same things, but what we're doing here is we're actually adding a React table. That was one thing that we didn't do last time. And React table gives us the ability to print out things neatly and then be able to order them. The other interesting things that you can do with the GraphQL is you've got a limit there in the list competitors. So you can actually limit that and then like do neat things like the pagination and that sort of thing with it. So you can actually tie the React table together with that GraphQL query to get a token so that you can move on in the paging. So we've got a class now for contestants. So what we want to do is we want to list all the contestants when we do the mount of the page. This time our state is pretty simple. We've just got competitors and data was something somewhere about something. I can't remember honestly, but it doesn't matter. And then what we're going to do here is we're rendering the table. So we're building the header. We've got name, phone number, email, the time that it took, and your score, and then we just print that out. So pretty straightforward stuff. So now that we've done that, if we go back to our app and click on contestants, we now can see Superman and his current score. So for those who have managed to, and I know there's at least one who have got into the application, if you go and put in your details and have a go at it, we can have a look at what your score is. All right, let's close that off. Okay, so now let's do one last thing here, and then we might do the extra added stuff if we've got a bit of time. So we just want to publish that and show that that's now up and running in AWS. And then we can look at adding analytics to our application. The interesting thing about this is that it's putting the analytics into US West 2, which I kind of don't understand why. But yeah, so is it called analytics? It's not called analytics. It's called
Pinpoint.
sorry?
Pinpoint.
No, I don't think it's called. It gives us the link at the end. Let's just add it. So we'll let that publish. We can go over here, Amplify, add analytics. So analytics can give you, you know, like think Google Analytics. It'll give you information about how many the page clicks and all that sort of thing and what people are doing. Okay, so now it's published. So our full application is now published to the S3 bucket. And it didn't want to do that probably because it was published at that time. So let's try it again. Hopefully I haven't broken it. Pinpoint. Sorry, is that what you said?
Yeah.
No, we'll go with no, but you wouldn't do that, and Amplify push to set that up to the file. Okay, so while that's doing that, I guess, is there any questions about anything that we've gone through tonight? I've got plenty of prizes.
So given that on your client it's all NPM package based, what are your thoughts about the need to check for updates globally in the tooling, and also updates to packages that your individual app is using?
That's a very good question. So what I'd recommend for you in a production environment is look at some of the artifact repositories. Some of the artifact repositories that are out there can actually intercept so they kind of act as a proxy. And what they're doing is they're also getting data from the CVEs for vulnerabilities, and they won't allow you to pull a package down from this repository if it's an old version. So then you need then at that point in time, if you're using that as part of your build process, you won't get that package pulled down because it'll fail the build, it'll 404, and you'd need to go and update your package.json to increase the package version of the file, of the library, right? Yeah. Cool.
There's also basically local package managers that you can use that will check it locally before the dev team can actually check it before they push the code. Those two options basically. Thanks.
Have a book and a pen.
Well, thank you very much. That's very nice.
Sorry? One person has done it. Congratulations, you won a prize. So let's go to contestants. Woohoo! Lots of people. Awesome. So if you want a book or a pen or both, put your hand up who put it in. Well done. Any other questions? Yep.
Is all the resource that it creates in AWS through CloudFormation, or does it do other things? Is it like
it's all through CloudFormation.
Yeah.
So the CloudFormation is in the directory, and you can hack it. So for your benefit, and you'll know who I'm talking about, John does it in his projects. It can be a little bit scary because if you make a change, you'll end up overriding that CloudFormation, and then you might unwind what you've done. I kind of, I don't want to speak out of turn, but I understand that there's potentially some of those sort of things that are starting to wind their way into the service team to kind of, hey, how can I extend the CloudFormation to add other components? A good example there would be, say, to have a certificate on your CloudFront. So if you're going to have a unique URL, like a vanity URL, my website.com or whatever it is, and you wanted that certificate, then you'd want to add it into your ACM certificate, you want to add it into that CloudFormation. Of course, if you use the Amplify console, it actually takes care of all of that for you. It will create the certificate and it will also add it to the CloudFront, so it does all that. Chris, you can have a book. Do you want a book and a pen?
Yeah.
Come on. You need to come back and work for us though.
Yeah.
You can sign the contract with that name.
Yeah. Any other questions? Anybody? Yep.
So in a production environment with a CI/CD pipeline, how would you do this with a CI/CD pipeline? Because you wouldn't want to rely on an old MacBook Air that was really slow to deploy your production code.
Sure. So there's a couple of ways you can use the Amplify console, because you can hook that straight into GitHub to do it, and you can kind of get the workflow there. Or you can use anything like Code Pipeline or Jenkins or whatever it is that you use. And you'd want to write something that can do the publish and the push. So you kind of got to understand what those are doing. So maybe you'd have a Docker image, for example, that would have the Amplify toolkit installed, and that would the build pipeline, the code pipeline could use code build or something like that to call that, or Jenkins could run the Docker container and pull in that code and do your Amplify push and publish. So I guess there's a few things that you'd want to be careful of. The environments would be key in that sort of thing. As I said at the beginning, I'm a little bit skeptical on environments yet. I can see that they'll work, but there's a few things that I got caught out with environments. So yeah, just be careful. I'm not 100% sure that I would use Amplify just yet for kind of production stuff, unless it was a small app for a very, very small team. It's awesome to get up and running with a really quick POC, and that's what we're generally doing for customers. We want to just see something that can use Cognito or this or that or whatever it is to try and do a kind of a POC or an MVP with a customer. We fall back on Amplify because we can get up and running really, really quickly with it. Maybe, I don't know, for everyone's experience in here with AWS things, like give it 6 months or whatever, and then it's, the first kind of iterations are a little bit rougher on the edges because they want to get it in front of people because they want to get that feedback, right? They want to see what are all the use cases that we've never thought of, right? Us as users in that instance, I'm sure that you know from your users, they love to break things in new and interesting ways that you never thought of. And that's what I love to do to AWS products, right? So they're looking for that feedback so that they can improve the product. So watch this space. I'm sure it'll get really, really, really good, and it'll become a kind of a really good product.
Just one thing that one you can, if you're concerned about the testing, so you can use test to do the native testing. That's already integrated. And regarding if you want to create segregated environments for dev, UAT or certain purpose, you can use Amplify N and then specify the environment as a parameter in your shell or wherever you're doing deployment as resolution.
Yep.
And you can have segregated, completely separate environments as you wish. Yeah.
There you go. I take them from the kids. Any other questions from anybody? No? Going once? Going twice? Sold. Thank you very much. That's it. If you want to come up and ask a question of me afterwards, feel free. I've got one book left and I've got tons of pens. That one? Should be the same.
I learned pretty more than a couple of minutes. We're just going to, so for those who have been here previous months, we've been talking about doing the draw prize this month by picking the best photo with our squishy polar bears. So you'll see that in a second, and that has actually skipped to the last question there. But if everyone could also just very quickly log on to or even 10 people, log on to www.menti.com, use that code up top, and we'll just quickly vote for the favourite picture with the polar bear. So I'll give everyone 1 minute just to quickly use that code. And again, thanks to our sponsors, AC3, Fortinet, App Dynamics, and N2WS, who have been able to make these events possible month to month. Okay. So this is open-ended. Just type in your favorite type of pizza. We need this type of information so we can keep doing good nights for you guys. Okay, stopping in 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Okay. So from these nights, what AWS services do you want to hear about, or what AWS service do you guys work with most? Is it EC2? Is it serverless type stuff? Is it IoT? Is it big data? They can be specific services as well. Ending in 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Great. Now for the fun stuff. So just because it's a little small, I'm gonna go into Google Slides. Okay, so there was too many submissions, so we could only put up the top ones. So if everyone can just remember these 2 photos, and you'll vote in a second. And just for everyone's, we had a late submission about an hour ago, but it was disqualified as there's no Polar 7 polar bear. It's just a random polar bear. That's not allowed, sorry. It is a nice photo though, so props for that. Okay. So it looks like people have already been voting. And it says 0 there, and I think I've hidden the results. And I'm going to leave them hidden. Okay, I'll reveal that in just after this last question. And last one, does everyone plan on coming back next month? Good answer. Okay, so I'm going to take this out now so I can see. So the winner is whoever did the picture with the polar bear up top, coming up in a second on the left. I'm really sorry I don't know your name. Are you around? What was your name, sorry?
My name is Anil.
Anil. Congratulations, here you go. Thank you. So, yep, we are hiring at Polar 7, so email your resume to people@polar7.com if you're looking for either service desk job or solution architect or cloud engineer. And next user group will be here at Park Street, and we will be getting a presentation from Fortinet, so that's on 7th of August, and from the last question we'll be seeing you guys all there. So great, thanks everyone.